different ways you can use markers. These are called techniques. So the ways you use a material, in this case we're using ink in markers, is called techniques. So the first thing you should think about is there are different kinds of markers. There are fine point markers, there are wide tip markers, and then there are things like highlighters and Sharpies. Be aware that if it says, I'm trying to find one that says this, washable on here, or it's just called a marker, it is a water-based marker, and there it will blur and blend with other markers. If it says permanent marker on there, like Sharpies is a brand of that, then it won't blur and blend with other markers. It's permanent. And highlighters, it varies whether they're permanent or water-based. But different markers make different kinds of lines and go on in a different way. So, and then you have the Sharpies. This is not a very good one. This is a fine tip, extra fine point. And if you have them, now I have water-based markers, I have regular markers, and I have Sharpies. If you have some highlighters or things like that you would like to use, that's fine. Now you can see, I don't know if you can see this, but this is water-based, because see how the red is blending in a little bit with the yellow. So that's what happens when you use water-based together. You can get a little bit of that blend, which can be nice. Permanent markers won't do that. Okay, another way you can use markers, other than different types of markers, is to outline and fill in. So I could outline a shape, and then I could fill it in. I could fill it in with the same color. I could fill it in with different colors too. And I'm going in one direction here. You wouldn't have to necessarily go in one direction, but outline and fill in. There are things called stippling and scumbling. Stippling, making dots. Now when you do this with a marker, you don't want to wreck the marker. So you notice I'm just making little dots. I'm not hitting the marker down. That would wreck the marker. You can also do larger dots by going like that. And you can do that on top of other colors if you want, or you can put a color over it. And then there's scumbling, which is rather than, a lot of times we think of markers going in a line. Scumbling is a curved motion, which creates a different sort of feel, a different kind of textural look to it. And you can scumble more than one color together. Okay, and then there is something called hatching and cross-hatching. So let me show you that. So hatching is when you go diagonally, and you can have space between them, or you can overlap them. Cross-hatching is when you go two different directions. And you can get them farther apart or closer together. You could do it with different colors. You could add colors to it. Okay, and then you can overlap markers too. So as I'm going along, I can, and the point where they overlap will be darker. I could overlap two different colors if I want. And that yellow doesn't even show up very well, but that's overlapping. And you, with markers, you see that really obvious overlap. You can also do things like I made some notes here. I'll continue my overlap up here. I could create pattern on top of it with marker. So I can create any number of different patterns. I could create texture, like I could use stippling, scumbling. I can make it look rough. And I could do that on top of a color, or I could do that separately. Then blending colors. Now, overlapping is one way to blend, because where the two colors meet, with water-based markers, you do get a little bit of a blend. So here, see, I went back and forth, and I got a little bit of a blend there. Another way to blend colors. So you can put one color on, and then, let's say I want another color, and then I want to blend this edge. Another way to do that is with clear water, and this only works with the water-based markers, not Sharpies. So once you have those two colors, you take some clear water. Hopefully your brush is clean. And you can put water on there, and you can blend them. You could also move the marker around the paper a little bit more. And this is really working with the ink of the marker in a way that's very much like watercolor. So I can drip water on there and get more of a blend there. I mean, I could do that to any number of these. So these are 6 different techniques to work with markers. As you work with the section of your artwork that has marker, try out some different techniques.